Hello, this is Esther Hicks, and this is the Law of Attraction Workshop Series. This seminar was recorded on board Celebrity's beautiful Solstice ship the week of July 12th through the 19th of 2019. Our primary intent with this work is to connect with those who are attracting this information, and we are so appreciative of the role of your intentions in this joyous co-creative experience.
I want to talk about the notion of when people say, and I've heard this my whole life, so it's probably a belief, but I still incorporate it into my daily experience of, well, if this job, I didn't get this job, or I didn't get this house that I want to move into, that it wasn't, quote unquote, it wasn't meant to be, and that there is something bigger and better coming.
We would say it in different words. We would say, I didn't rendezvous with it. I didn't rendezvous with it. And it could be for these reasons. Either it wasn't up to speed with my desire, or I wasn't up to speed with my desire. Can you hear the difference? It wasn't meant to be. That doesn't make any sense, because there's no one minting things into being outside of you. So it either means that it doesn't match what my vortex version is, or I'm not matching what my vortex version is. Now, we agree with you. You say these things and you hear these things, but now you are different, because now you've had several hours together where you've been steeped in a new understanding of the way life is coming to you. And so if you're approaching anything that you've wondered about before from this new perspective of, well, I'm tending to my point of attraction, and what is my point of attraction right now? Am I under the influence of my inner being? Because if I am, then that house is not up to speed with who I am. If I'm up to speed with who I am, then I'm up to speed with what's in my vortex. So I'm up to speed. So my point of attraction is such that what I really want will come to me. And if that doesn't come, then it isn't what I really want. Did you hear that? So can you hear how helpful it would be in all of these situations of wondering? Can you hear how helpful it would be to be pretty good at acknowledging, what influence am I under right now? Am I under the influence of source, or am I under the influence of not liking where I live? Am I under the influence of understanding my ability to be or do or have anything I want, or am I under the influence of wanting to prove my worthiness in some way? As you play with this on big and small subjects, on a variety of different topics, you'll get really good at knowing what influence you're under. Have you ever been in a situation where you said about the room full of people, or about a particular person that you are interacting with, that person brings the best out in me? I'm more lively, I'm more clever, I'm more fun, I'm less inhibited. I feel better when I'm with that. Well, that's what it feels like to be under the influence of source. I'm just at my best. I feel security, not insecurity. Or I feel confidence, not lack of confidence. I feel exhilarated, not lethargic. Or I feel stable, not unstable. You see? And so as you just practice moment by moment, what influence am I under? What influence am I under? Then it's easy for you to know, well, that house just isn't the right house.
As I go through this process, and we'll use the house example, if I see something that I like, that's just a representation, but I know...
A representation of what?
Representation of what I want, but it may be just, I can't feel it. So it's not really a direction I should go. Does that make sense? Like,
you're introducing some really wonderful things to this conversation. So this is the way we would approach it if we were standing in your physical shoes. First, if it isn't something that is really ringing your bells, we wouldn't move in the direction of it. We'd just call it data collecting. But you also want to focus, as we've been talking all this week, on being in a bell ringable position. If you're not in a position where you can hear your bells ringing, then you're not going to hear your bells ringing. And so sometimes bells are ringing and you don't hear it, and sometimes the wrong bells are ringing, so to speak. So it's necessary to know how you feel. And so this is how we would approach it. That was a little hard to hear. We're going to make it clear for you. A nice way to approach life is to say, I'm going to make a decision, and I'm going to line up with the decision, because there are so many options that would be lovely, But in human experience, I want to find the very best option. And I'm afraid if I pick an option that's not the very best option, then I will prevent myself from having the very best option. What if I pick something lesser than what I really want? And if we were standing in your physical shoes, that's not the way we would approach it. If we've practiced knowing what it feels like for bells to ring, and our bells are ringing a little bit, we would make a decision to line up with that, because you can be in a position later where something else and something else and something else, there's nothing that is the end of your ability to attract. And so there is a sort of limitation that you're imposing unnecessarily that goes something like, I've got to make the right decision, because you really can't make the wrong decision. Because any decision that you make, if you decide to line up with it, you're going to have inner being help. And since you never get it done, then is there any problem with it just getting better and 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 better? Do you ever stand back and regret having been 4? Oh, I'm embarrassed that I was 4. I didn't know very much then. Or 5. Not much more then either. Enjoy your evolution through your attraction, through your steady, never-ending attraction. There's still questions in there.
Yes, there is. There definitely is. As I've been here this week, and some of the earlier speakers have touched upon it, they are manifesting things in their life, and it's like this.
Oh, it just looks that way. It's always like that on the other side of the fence.
There was a young woman up here that was constantly manifesting, and she perceived that her husband wasn't just at the same rate of speed. And I find that in my life, because my partner, he's very much like this, and he feels at times that I should be farther than I am. And it's frustrating for me, because I'm here and I'm kind of on my own journey, and he's there on his journey, and most of the time they line up, but every once in a while.
We want to tell you something about the plan for all of this contrast that surrounds you. The non-physical intention that you held, you thought that all of that contrast would inspire you to personal decisions, but you never planned on the comparison thwarting you. You never planned on looking at others and having it be to your disadvantage. You always planned on the variety that you are being to your advantage, because it gives you choices. And so earlier when we said make a decision and line up with it, you could decide that your partner is impatient and that he's right and that you're flawed. And you could line up with that, which doesn't feel very good ever. Or you could decide that he's on his path and you're on your path, and your paths converge a lot, and that you have different ways of approaching life and both of them work. And you could decide that you have so much vibrationally in common that that's what attracted you to one another, but that you didn't come as identical twin vibrators, or there would have been no point for 2 of you to be there. If you were identical, you wouldn't need the other one. There'd be no advantage to that. So just make a decision and line up with it. Is your approach wrong?
No.
Don't make that decision and line up with it. Is your partner's approach wrong? Don't make that decision and line up with it. Hesitated a little too long there. Or can you both be right in your approach to life? And can the different beats and the different sounds and the different notes make a beautiful combination?
Well, they do. And going back to what you said earlier about bringing the best in someone else, I think that he does bring the best out in me. And he also has a way of, I guess, expanding my perspective, because he's already in the flow. And he's like, he wants to do everything, go everywhere, buy everything, and just be a superstar. And it sounds great to me. Let me come along for the ride, and I'll join you. But he's shown me things. He's shown me a lot. He's been a great teacher.
In that last little run, what was apparent is your awareness of how things look to others more than how they feel to you. In this significant conversation that we are appreciating so much, you're not tending to your point of attraction. You are analyzing your point of attraction, trying to step into somebody else's viewpoint, which you can't do. and you are comparing your attraction. This is maybe the primary point of this conversation that's been developing as we've all been together, is that as you're tending to your point of attraction, that means you're tending to how you feel. That means you're tending to merging how you feel with how your inner being feels. That means you understand the process. Step 1 was you ask for stuff. Step 2 was it got put there and that your inner being is tending it. And step 3 is you're finding vibrational alignment with it. And step 4 is you're getting really good at that. And that's what tending to your vibration means, caring about the way you feel. And we've been sort of hammering that for the last, most of today especially, that if you care about your point of attraction more than you care about what your point of attraction produces, you'll be home free. But it's hard to do because you're used to standing in a world where most of the people who are looking on are only looking at the results of your vibration. And so if you've been living like a physical human where you're producing this and you're producing this and you're saying, see, I made that and 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 I made that, caring about what others are perceiving and their evaluation of what you're perceiving is one way of approaching life. But you're not ever going to be perceived in the way you think you want to be perceived, because all of the perceivers want different things from you. For some of them you're far too wealthy, and for some of them you're not wealthy enough, and for some of them you have the wrong sexual preferences, and for some of them you have the perfect sexual preferences. For some of them you're of the right political party, and on and on and on and on and on and on it goes. And so it is a hopeless situation to seek happiness through creating superstardom. It's a hopeless situation. You're just not ever going to, if you're measuring yourself against others, you're not ever going to be in a place where you're truly satisfied, because that satisfaction depends upon the polling of others and their analysis of you, of which they have no true ability to even ascertain. They cannot come to the correct conclusions about you. Don't ask them to do that. They just can't do it, and it's totally unsatisfying for you and for them too. But if instead of approaching life from the standpoint of how my creations stack up against other creators, if instead you are creating life in terms of how my point of attraction feels, how my alignment feels, you see, it is as wonderful to create a button as a castle, because the desire for it and the accomplishment of it brings an alignment together that is sublime. And it's only people from the outside that are measuring the value of the castle or the button. But for the creator of it, anything that you desire and you come into alignment with, now you are tending to your vibration and you are at one with your inner being, and you have become whole with who you are, and all is well in your universe. You see what we're getting at? So much of the physical world is wanting to measure accomplishments by manifestations, and it is so backwards, because the manifestations are so temporary, they're so fleeting. It's this house, then this house, and this car, and then this car, and this piece of clothing, and this piece of clothing, and on it goes. And it's only really rarely that you get a keepsake that you want to drag through life with you, and then you're dragging your mother's keepsakes through life with her, until you're burdened with all of these physical manifestational keepsakes that don't mean diddly squat. They were all just your excuse to find a reason to focus yourself into the wholeness of who you are, you see. Helpful? So we adore it when you create lovely stuff. We really like it when something sparks your interest and you focus on it and you relax and you allow it to happen, and you acknowledge the relationship between it being in your life and your attention upon it. We are not wanting to dissuade you from magnificent creation of physical things. You are in a physical world. You're here to let your manifestations show like that. We just want the manifestations to represent the way you felt as they were becoming, because beyond that, they are meaningless. Beyond the way they caused you to feel, or beyond the way you allowed yourself to feel, they don't have any real meaning. They're just something to store and dust and ensure. The desires that your life helps you to identify that you want are your excuse for flowing energy. And it's the flowing of the energy that is the prize.